3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
This is our new workshop from Directed IRA called Rethinking Your Retirement. It's going to be a little bit different. If you're used to watching Matt and Mark on their podcasts or their webinars, it's going to be a little bit different how these workshops are formulated. The purpose of these workshops is really to dive deep into the actual investments that self-directed IRA investors are doing. It may be me going over different case studies and analyzing real life investments that investors have made, so we can kind of look at the lessons in there, the positives, the negatives, the pitfalls, the profits, and everything in between. Or it could be an episode like today, where we have a very special guest who has proven themselves to be investors. They use self-directed IRAs, but coming from somebody else instead of just from us, I think that's important for you guys as viewers to hear from actual clients, non-clients, just people that are using these accounts to grow generational wealth, invest in things that they understand more than they understand the stock market, but do it in a completely tax-free manner. So this whole educational workshop series is helped to make you better self-directed IRA investors. And we're never going to be selling investments to you guys on this program. Most of you guys know we don't sell investments at Directed IRA. We are a self-directed IRA custodian that lets you pick the investments. And as we go through, we'll kind of explain that if you're not a client or if you're not familiar to us as a company. So let's just jump underway, and I'm going to just share some slides before we bring in David here and talk a little bit about who we are and what we do in case you're new. This is my first time seeing, well, not really seeing, but I guess you guys seeing me as executive director at Directed IRA. Just want to give you a quick background so you know kind of where I come from. This program is not about me, but just so you have some familiarity. I'm the executive director at Directed IRA. I've been in the IRA business, self-directed IRA business for 10 years with several companies. So I have a real good grasp about how self-direction works. Obviously, I'm a certified IRA services professional since 2014, but I actually transitioned from a real estate investor and somebody working in the mortgage business for 10 years prior to even learning about self-direction. Now, I first learned about self-directed IRAs in 2012. When I first learned about them, I thought first, how come I'm just hearing about this? I've been investing in real estate for 10 years. I owned rental properties, 17 rental properties at that time. I had, a career as a mortgage loan officer. So I was doing things in real estate, but I had never heard about this self-directed IRA that you can invest tax-free or tax-deferred retirement funds into the things that I understood. I had an account with Northwestern Mutual, no shame to them, but I had an account with them that it was invested in stocks. And had I known I could have used those funds to invest in the things I was more knowledgeable about, I could have done a lot better for myself back then. And it really changed. It was a life-changing event for me at that point, because I thought everybody should understand this concept, or at least know that there's more options when it comes to their retirement assets. So I take a lot of pride in at least sharing what I've learned through the 10 years of working in the self-directed IRA industry. I've had the opportunity to not only learn from people like Matt Sorensen, but also learn from the investors themselves. That's where I've actually learned a lot. People that are investing in real estate with their self-directed IRAs, people that are investing in notes with their self-directed IRAs. That's the one thing I like to do. So again, I'm just trying to share what I've learned, and we'll bring on guests to share what they've learned to help you guys become better investors as well. Jeff Minnick, I'm not sure if Jeff's on with us, but he is also somebody that you're going to see commonly on this program. Jeff also has 10 years of experience in self-directed IRA. So between the two of us, you've got 2 decades of self-directed IRA experience. He is our Vice President of Business Development. He'll be in the background fielding questions if you have IRA questions. He'll also be on the program with us from time to time. So I just want to make sure that you guys know Jeff Minnick as well. He's also a certified IRA services professional. If you guys don't know what that is, it's just a nerdy term for somebody that knows a lot about IRAs. It's like the bar exam for IRA, for people that work in the IRA industry. So we've got Jeff as well that will be on this program helping you guys. Quick reminder as we get into this, what this is intended to do is obviously provide education to you guys. We're never going to sell you investments. Our speakers are never going to sell you investments. We always encourage all parties to seek financial advice through their attorneys, their accountants, or financial professionals or mentors before they enter in any type of investment. But hopefully these workshops will let you become better informed so that you make good investment decisions for yourself. Because the best thing about a self-directed IRA is you get to pick the investments. The worst thing about a self-directed IRA is you get to pick the investments. So you just want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and understand that we're not going to sell the investment to you or tell you whether your investment's good or bad. We're just going to offer the administrative option for you to use a self-directed IRA to buy things that are not tied to Wall Street. Those are things that we call alternative assets. Alternative assets are on the rise if you don't know, okay? And this is kind of the underlying message to this program. Why are we even talking about retirement? Well, first of all, retirement accounts are the largest source of American wealth. Right now, there's over $30 trillion sitting in American retirement. That's more than they've got in their bank accounts. It's taken a little bit of a beating the last year and a half, I understand, but still, American retirement accounts is the largest source of US wealth. About 97% of that wealth is invested into traditional assets like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs. It's been even more, a higher percentage in years past. As we've gone along, more people have been gravitating toward investments outside of the stock market. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And we'll talk about that as we go through. But there are more people today looking for alternative investments outside of the stock market than ever before. Just so you guys understand, there's all sorts of projections about alternative assets in retirement accounts. I've seen numbers ranging from 60% increase over the next 5 years to 70% increase until 2030. There's been record after record set over the last year about the amount of money that's going into alternative investments. Now, a lot of that has to do with technology. We didn't have the technology that we did in the past that allows, I would say, your mom and pop investor to find investments like syndication investments and things online through crowdfunding. There's just more opportunity to find investments through the internet than ever before. Before, a lot of this alternative asset investing was segregated to the rich and the wealthy, the people that were in the know. Now everybody's kind of in the know. So alternative assets is on the rise. And when we're talking about alternative assets, what are we actually talking about? Well, we're talking about investments like rentals, right? Cash flowing rental property, fix and flips, secured and unsecured notes, investments into private equity, right? Not public, but private equity, oil and gas interests, mineral rights. The list goes on and on. Your traditional investments are stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Your alternative investments are everything outside of that. And when it comes to your retirement accounts, most people don't realize you have almost unlimited investment options. There's only two things you cannot own in a retirement account, and that's life insurance contracts and collectibles. Anything else can be owned inside of a retirement account. The only thing is you want to make sure that you're working with a company that will allow you to hold that asset in your retirement account. And that's what we do at Directed IRA. We hold alternative assets in retirement accounts, whereas Fidelity, Charles Schwab, they hold publicly traded assets or traditional assets. Most of our clients have an account with Fidelity and they have an account with Directed IRA. That gives you true diversification to invest in all sorts of things. But just to understand, it's not illegal to invest in these things. It's just you can't invest in these types of alternative assets through your traditional custodians. You have to work with a company like Directed IRA. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And for you clients, you guys already understand that. Real quick, and then we're going to get to David here in a second. Just want to mention there's all sorts of plans that can be self-directed. So as we talk about different investments, and we might continuously say your self-directed IRA or your Roth IRA, but just be aware, there's 7 different accounts that you can self-direct. So when we say self-directed IRA, that could mean a self-directed traditional IRA. It could mean a self-directed Roth IRA. It could mean a self-directed health savings account or a Coverdell education savings account or a 401k. There's a lot of different tax advantaged entities that you can use in self-direction. It's not just the Roth IRA, which you hear so much about. So as we go through this, as we talk about self-direction, realize there's a lot more of accounts that we're really mentioning. And we'll talk a lot more about that in future workshops, but just want to make sure that you guys understand there's more than just self-directed and Roth. There's 7 different types of accounts that we work with. One last thing I want to mention, and then we're going to kick it off with David here, is I kind of mentioned the rich and the wealthy have already been investing in alternatives for many years, primarily because they had access to these investments and we didn't. Now that we have access to it. But I always save this article because I just thought this was very interesting. And this is a little bit older of an article. It's from 2020, but it was an article in Forbes. And what caught my attention is the title. And it said, "Got alternative assets in your IRA? Watch out." So me being in the self-directed IRA industry, I had to read this article. And I thought, what is so scary about self-directed IRAs based on that title? Well, when you actually read the article, they're telling people to watch out if you have alternative assets in your IRA, because the IRS had identified that of the IRAs, all IRAs that are invested, only about 2% of those back in 2016, that number's grown a little bit, but only about 2% of IRAs held alternative assets. That wasn't what they had the issue with. What they were having an issue with was the IRAs that were valued above $5 million, 25% of the assets within those accounts were alternative assets. So that makes you really think. If 98% of IRAs are invested in alternatives, yet the large ultra wealthy IRAs valued above $5 million have a much higher percentage in alternatives, do they know something that the other people didn't? So always think to yourself, what is it that I want to invest in with my retirement account? Do I understand stocks? Do I understand mutual funds? Or do I understand something else? If you understand something else, if you understand real estate, if you understand notes, or if it's just an investment that makes you feel more comfortable, know that you can use your IRA to invest in those things. And IRAs have so many tax benefits. I can nerd out for hours talking about all the different tax benefits with them. So again, I just like to point that out to you guys. And David, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I sure can.
I think I hear you there. I want to introduce you, and I want to thank you for sharing some time with us today. I know you got a busy schedule. I've known you for, I don't know, probably a decade now. I've seen you, come through and start Freedom Founders and really transform a lot of people's lives through that mentorship, through that program. I'm just glad that you're here to teach our clients about finding financial freedom, because you're one of the guys that has found it, and you're actually teaching people how to find it on their own terms. So again, thank you for joining us.
Well, my pleasure, Nate. And you really set the stage so well with just going through the opportunities and the options that we all have in directing our financial future. And as you said, typically people kind of advocate to the financial markets, not saying that's a bad place to go, but when you really want to control your future, and we're talking about like rethinking your retirement today, I like to think about retirement in a different way. Retirement to me really is not retiring in the traditional sense, but it's having more options, more freedom, more choices. That's where Freedom Founders came from. And the way to get there is by directing your finances. To your point, what do you understand? What kind of vehicles do you understand? Become familiar with those. And one of my favorites is real estate, so we're going to talk some about that today. But we'll talk about overall concepts. The other thing that you mentioned is that so many people do not understand that they can self-direct their retirement accounts or qualified money. So many people have no idea. I have a lot of people that come to Freedom Founders, and the first thing they find out is, oh my gosh, I could be actually taking more control over these accounts and invest them in other vehicles other than the stock market and bonds. And opening up that diversification is kind of mind-blowing to a lot of people. So your education, what you do at Directed IRA is substantially helping so many people. And I appreciate that. I appreciate knowing you. You are so creditworthy to me because we did kind of grow up together over this last decade and doing what we do to help other people. So I'm going to jump in and get things started here. I'm going to keep my presentation pretty tight and go relatively quickly through it just to give concepts and some backstory and I think some inspiration for people. And then I want to open up the questions. And I see the questions already popping in here because I want to help get to those. I love questions. So keep populating the Q&A. Nate and I will get there. So let me pop my slide deck open here and we will run. And here we go. Let's put there and slideshow there. There we go. All right. Is that showing up okay for you, Nate?
Showing up great.
Okay. Well, there's our title. So this is where I started. Yeah, that's me. I like to torture people back in the 80s when I was a dentist. I really wasn't a torturing dentist, but I use that little moniker just to kind of make fun of the profession. A lot of people are afraid of the dentist. I actually was a pretty kind, gentle dentist in my day. But at the same time, I moved to something else. It wasn't retirement. It was doing what I call the next thing. And I will tell you that real estate, and a big part of that was my self-directed IRA accounts that I could invest in real estate the way I chose to do so, was what opened up the door for me to do what I do today. And I want people to kind of think about that, not just retirement, but how are you setting up milestones so that you can have more choices and options in your life way sooner than the quote traditional retirement age. So this is a book that one of the studies I had to go through in school to get to become a dentist, organic chemistry. And of course, it was important. I had to pass the test. But at the same time, I was reading other books. And this is a book that is no longer published, but the author, William Nickerson, was back in the 70s. I picked this book up. You could probably find one on eBay. It's a classic. Still, a lot of the concepts about real estate are relevant today. And that's what turned me on to something tangible, something that I could invest in and have more control over. And I love to have control. So this is the first house my first rental property house, 1980. I purchased this. I was my first year in dental school in Dallas, Texas. And I had no money, I had no credit. So people were wondering, well, how the heck, Dave, did you buy that nice house? Number one, it wasn't that nice when we bought it. This is after we fixed it up. And how did I get a loan? How did I get the down payment? Because I was a kid that had like student loans I was paying myself. I got my dad. My dad was my first joint venture partner. That's a great way to move forward in your own assets, is find private capital lenders. I just went to my dad because I hope he would trust me, and he did. We bought this property, fixed it up so it looked nice. And that property I managed for the next 3 years. We split about $50,000 in capital gain profit on that property. And I then turned that into many more properties. Now, back then, Nate, IRAs were out there. My dad helped me set my first one up, I think around that time, 1980, 81, but there was no self-directing back then. So I had this IRA that was in like the stock market. But that was my first turn on to IRAs. It wasn't until about 2005, so gosh, that's 25 years later, that I found the world of self-direction. So we'll get to that. 2010, I left my dental practice. I'll tell you why in a minute. This was my first Freedom Founders Mastermind meeting in a small room. There was about 12 of us there. That's where it started. So if you have an idea or inspiration in your life to do something creative, I say just give it a go. Just try something on a low scale basis, and you'll find out whether it's something you want to do or something can scale. In this last year, Freedom Founders has grown to what you see on the right side of your screen, to an organization that we have over 300 people that are involved in our quarterly meetings every year. It's just an idea that came with a passion I have to show other professionals how they can take more control over their finances. This is Freedom Founders, just our last event in February, just 2 months ago, last event. So it's grown a lot, as you can see, over the years. This is my daughter, Jenna. Now, this is Jenna in 1995. So again, how many years ago is that? Do the quick math. Is that 25 years ago? That's Jenna, healthy 2-year-old. This is Jenna 2 weeks later. No, she didn't get beat up. She doesn't have the mumps. She was diagnosed with high-risk leukemia. That was a major, major setback to me, my family. As you can imagine, if you've gone through any health crises in your life or your family members, you know how devastating that can be. So she had leukemia. Subsequent to that, she survived that, but it was very, very difficult. Then she had epileptic seizures for another 4 years after that. And then next thing you know, she has end-stage liver failure, and she had to be put on the transplant list. And we got her on in Houston at Texas Children's Hospital. They call, I'm really going fast with this, but they call and say, we've got a liver for Jenna. She's care flighted down. I'm coming out of my office that day, catching a flight from Dallas down to Houston, and 4 hours later, she's in surgery having her liver transplanted to save her life. That's what they call the Mercedes scar of a liver transplant. And Jen's now at that point, this was in 2004, she's undergoing the recovery stages of that. And this is the time that I really had to take kind of accountants of where was I in my life? What was I doing? Was I prioritizing the right things? And certainly being a financial stalwart for my family was very important. Working hard and having enough income to cover the bases when my daughter was sick and going through all this. But what I really needed was more time back. So I made a decision while she was there in the hospital, and that was, I'm going to sell my dental practice. Now, I couldn't do that just casually. You don't just walk away from a job or a career just because you want to, and you have a great desire to do. And I had a desire to spend time with my daughter, but I went back and looked at what had I built up over the years in alternative investments, in this case, real estate. And I didn't have all the money I needed in the world, but I had enough money to buy myself more time at that point. That's what I was looking for. What I say today to people, I say, what is wealth really? Why do we want to achieve more wealth? And I say it's because we want more time. George Gilder says money is tokenized time. So again, think about what you want money for. Yes, you have to support your family and you have a lifestyle, I call it a burn rate that you manage with your household and your utilities and your living expenses and all the things we do. But at the end of the day, what I want wealth for is to buy back time. I want more time in my life. And when I was younger, I was willing to give it away because that's where we are. But as you get older in life and you have a family and you have things that are important to you, start realizing that time is slipping away. And if I can achieve a certain amount of wealth, I can convert that back into time through the cash flow income that assets will produce for us. And that's a lot of what you are learning to do through real estate and through directed IRA. This is a pyramid that I created a little bit off of Maslow's hierarchy. You can see the base of the pyramid is the freedom of economics. That's what everybody tries to achieve first. I've got to have enough money to do what? For me, it's not about the wealth or the net worth. It's about the income. How much income can I drive from assets that I don't have to go to work to do every day? Certainly, if you're managing rental properties, there's some amount of oversight or work, or you pay someone to do it. But my point is, you can have assets that will produce income for you and give you a lot of that flexibility and freedom that we all desire. Freedom of time is what I wanted when my daughter Jenna was sick in the hospital. Freedom of relationships, so I can spend time with the people I want to, or have a business with the people I want, or do business with people I want to do business with. Health is a big deal. Nate and I were talking about health before we jumped on today and how important that is. You can have all the money in the world, but if your health is bad because you put it off, because you just thought you were busy or you get to it someday, what good is all that money? So your health is important. And then at the top, it's like Maslow's. It's like, what's your real purpose in life? And I didn't know what my purpose was until probably the time that Jenna was sick, and I was figuring out what my next was going to be. And I could have always gone back to dentistry. I could still do it today, but I found another passion. And it's really what I do today. And I'll give you a little bit more of that at the end. What I'm saying to you is that a lot of times crises in our life seem like a really bad time for us. And they are. When you're in the middle of the storm, you're just trying to, get your way out. But if you persevere, a lot of times lessons are learned, character is built, and new doors will open if we're willing to step through them. As I said, I could have gone back to be a dentist. No regrets all the years I did dentistry, but I found a new way to live my life, and it's given me a lot more flexibility and really, I think, a passion that I didn't understand before. This is a little evolution. If you can relate to this, we go to school to learn to be technicians and good at something, right? To go into a career, a profession, or some kind of business. We become, say, a business operator if that's our goal. Then a business owner, which is one who can step back a little bit from the actual day-to-day operations of the business, so you're not quite tied to that assembly line. Then you learn how to market, because marketing your product or your services is very important. As an entrepreneur, you're taking a lot of risk out there. The ultimate end of the spectrum is what we're learning today is that is to become an investor. Now, you can do all those things at the same time, but typically to get to an investor, you have to work your way up a little bit and have that money to invest. So think about the evolution, where you are and what areas of the evolution you want to start to magnify in your life. Again, working on all of them at the same time is something you can do and should think about it that way. It doesn't have to be sequential.
I want to add something to that,
Yeah.
David, because you bring up a good point. We talk a lot about, being a real estate investor, or self-directed IRAs are good for real estate investors. And that's true. But based on that slide, what you can see is, when I'm looking at that, you can be all the way down to a technician. You can be, a small business operator. Self-direction is really for everybody if you really look at it. We have clients, and I have people that I've worked with that work 9-to-5 jobs. They're not real estate investors by trade, but they find that self-direction provides them some sort of additional benefit that they didn't get when they were investing in stocks. And you kind of mentioned it, Dave, with cash flow. A lot of these assets, especially real estate, for example, if you buy the right asset in the right location and do it in an IRA, well, that asset can produce cash flow to you. You don't have to be a real estate investor to understand that cash flow in retirement is a great concept versus just having a bunch of stocks that have to appreciate for you to tap into that that income. So that's just something that I kind of noticed there is self-direction is for everybody. It's not just for the entrepreneur. It's not just for the investor. It's really an asset class that everybody should look at.
Absolutely. No, excellent point, Nate. Let's see. Oh, I had the, see if this will go back. I'm losing my controls here a little bit for some reason. Sticking. Okay, there it is. A book I wrote and published a little over a year ago on inflation. Not here to sell you books. I'm just saying if you want a book that kind of explains where we are in the market in terms of the inflation cycle, what's happening there. I had fun in writing that book, and it's just a resource that I give out to a lot of people who are interested in Freedom Founders. Real quick on the state of the market. And again, we could do like 2 days on this. That's not the point here. But what I say to most people, and you can read the bullet points here, I'm not going to read them all for you. I believe we're in a different time frame, not just a market cycle by itself, but a secular trend that we've come out of over the last 40 years. I mentioned when I bought that first property in 1980, my mortgage interest rate, my dad and I, it was 13.5%, 13.5. And people today would say, well, rates have gone up, but boy, that's crazy. That's crazy. Well, we've had a declining 40 years of interest rates where we hit bottom in 2020. Now they're back up on the rise again. Well, why? Because we're seeing inflation for the first time in 40 years. My point to you is everything's going to be different, in my opinion, over the next years, not just in the next couple of years, but probably over the next decades. Again, without going into detail, we just have a major debt problem in this country. We have a spending problem, which means we've got more inflation to deal with, and that's going to cause more volatility. So it's an opportunity for you to be more focused on how you can enter the arena of alternative investments, because I believe my experience is that you can have more control than just putting it in the market. Again, not giving you financial advice, just giving you my own experience. There's the graph on 40 years of disinflation. You can look on the left side, 1980, the federal funds rate was at 20%. We hit rock bottom in 2020, also out of the great financial crisis in 2008. But we hit rock bottom, and now we're back on the way up. Not back to 20%. I don't believe that will happen, but it's going to stay higher than it has been over the last number of years, and that's just going to change the marketplace. So again, it's why you just need to be diligent and be curious and understand the opportunities. And I know there's some questions in the QA that talk about equity and debt, and we can touch on that because I think there's some real opportunities in understanding where both things stand, and you can do both in your self-directed IRAs, no problem. Just my point about Federal Chairman Powell, nobody knows. Nobody knows. They thought it was transitory. Now they're having to deal with the fact that the inflation is showing to be very sticky, and that's going to be a problem.
Well, I would say this too, especially when it comes to inflation, and again, this isn't political in any ways, but there's so much news about the dollar losing value and yada yada yada. The one thing that you want to think about as an investor though is I see a lot of investors get kind of shell shocked, and then they take maybe some of their money out of stocks and they just leave it in cash, which is fine. That you should have some cash, but you should also think about if it's just in cash, you're losing safely. You're getting broke safely. If the dollar's losing value and the cost of living is going up, well, the money you have sitting on the sidelines is actually not going to work for you as it would in the past. So again, this is why it's so important to talk about self-direction and at least alternative investments, so investors can go out there and look for assets, especially today, that will at least give them some sort of pace, either to outpace inflation or keep up with inflation.
Well, and tagging on to that, Nate, the reason I like alternatives is because I call its proximity to your investment. If I'm investing on the stock market, Wall Street, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, whatever, I'm very distant from where my money is. I mean, you can read financial reports. Your financial advisor can give you advice on that. Okay, I got it. But with alternatives, if I choose, I can be much closer to the money. I can actually, be involved in my investments to an extent. I mean, there's rules around what you do in your IRA, and Nate and company can certainly advise you on that. But even with funds or syndications where I'm definitely passive, I can get to know who those people are. I can look at specific deals, and that's part of the semi-active part that self-direction requires you to do. But that's why you have companies like Directed IRA, who give so much great education, will support your efforts to do that. I say take that opportunity, because so many people will not do it, and it's yours for the taking. So I just had to add that in there, Nate.
Yeah, great point.
Warren Buffett, again, I think this is so important. He says, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. Well, how do you do that? You need your investments into assets that will produce that money while you sleep. That's what we're talking about here today. Warren Buffett, very wise. He gets it, of course. So asset-based income versus labor-based income. I talked about the fact that I was a dentist for many years. That's technician. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. It's where we start in life. And continue to do that on whatever extent you love doing what you do. Perfect. But we need those assets. There's the little money houses. Those are the assets, right? We're talking about that will reduce that income that we don't have to go to work for every day to make that income happen. Think about your dollars as employees. That's how I think about extra dollars that are discretionary, that I want to make work for me in investments. How hard can I make those work? I can be really lazy. And like Nate said, I could just put it in the bank and just let it sit there at a low interest rate, or I can put them to work. Put them to work. I got to be a little bit on the forefront. I've got to be a little bit involved in that, and we'll talk briefly about that, how you do that. And part of that is network. Nate, I know you're a big fan of this. That's what you do, directed IRA. You create a community. No one's giving financial advice. No one's selling anything, but it's a community. You've got to do vetting, but you can get your money working harder if you do it with and through other people. Again, due diligence, vetting, very important. Not going to go into that today. You guys do a lot of training on that, but your network is what's going to get you there faster if you use proper diligence. Another comment I would make is no man is an island. No man stands alone. This is not something to do solo. You're going to take a lot longer to get where you want to go if you try to do everything by yourself. Find other people to collaborate with. Find companies.
The one thing I want to add on to that is, and maybe it's because of my background as I played baseball all through college. Team sports was kind of my life. All the way through college, football, basketball, baseball, but I think maybe one of the things underlying that I love about self-direction is it is a team sport, because yes, you have to surround yourself with individuals that can help you along the way. You're not expected to be a one-man wrecking crew. And I think that's part of the reason that I like self-direction is it does kind of inherently form a community, because you have to look for, attorneys and CPAs and mentors and, private lenders. And, you look for all these other people to help you scale your own business, and you can obviously, return the favor. So again, something that I just love about self-direction is that team sport activity, putting tools in your tool belt and leveraging the others around you.
Yeah, and it is just fun. It is just fun to do this, right? We enjoy that, and we enjoy being around people that are like-minded. So I enjoy it a lot. All right, last part of my presentation, and we'll cut this off. But I'm talking more about my purpose. Going back to my purpose, I feel a lot of compassion for generations that are coming up, younger people that I think are facing maybe greater headwinds than I faced when I was their age. So vision and legacy is a big part of what I talk about. At our Freedom Founders meetings, we invite, particularly at our summer meeting, we invite what we call next gen. Call it 16 to 30-year-olds. So broad span, but these are people that are young people who are, getting ready to go to high school or to college or starting, a career path, and they're trying to figure all this stuff out, right? And if we can help them with alternative pathways, alternative investments, for instance, how the world looks, it can give them a big step up. And so it's a big thing of what we do at our meetings, and just part of my passion in serving that next generation. Just to update my daughter, Jenna, she went through all this when she was from age 2.5 to age 12 when she got the liver transplant. She had a big rejection period in 2010, survived it, thankfully, by the grace of God. She just turned 30 years old. Wow. And there she is. And she wrote her own book called Get Up, how to survive leukemia, epileptic seizures, and liver transplant by the age of 20. So she wrote that book, and there's her book. So that's my presentation for today. I'm going to stop the screen share, and then we can look at any questions that you guys have curated. Jump in, and I'll let you take it back, Nate.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'll just put this slide up while we take questions. Again, if you've got questions about IRA specifically, I can answer those. If Jeff's on, he can answer those. You can always reach out to us. I've got our emails there. If we don't tackle them today, we can tackle them, as soon as we get off of this program. I can respond back to any emails if you guys have specific to IRAs and self-direction. And if you have, questions for David, we can tackle some of those right now. David, if you want to take some questions that you've seen there.
Yeah, I actually have a couple questions that I can just read off for you guys that I noted that we would answer live. And then if you guys want to continue on from those questions, we can do that. I'll just summarize it, and if you guys want to take a slam at it. So an anonymous attendee hopped in, and they said, if I buy a property using funds in my directed IRA account for a short-term rental, which requires furnishing, can I use funds in my directed IRA to pay for furnishing?
So I'll take that. You should use funds in your directed IRA to pay for anything that's related to the asset owned by your IRA. And that's one of the things that we teach a lot about is what not to do in an IRA and what to do in an IRA. Just real quick, we'll keep it basic. If your IRA owns a property and it's titled in the name of the IRA or an entity owned by your IRA should be paying for any expenses, whether that's furniture, whether that's new siding, whether that's cut down a tree, new roof. All those funds should be coming out of the IRA. The one thing you do not want to do is pay for that out of your own pocket. That's a prohibited transaction. You don't want to do that. You could blow up your entire IRA. So make sure if you're investing in real estate, you've got a little bit of a buffer in there to account for any unforeseen expenses. Or you have some money in an IRA somewhere else. Here's often what happens is we'll have a directed IRA client buy a property. They may have had a buffer to do some rehabs, buy furniture or whatnot. And then they get to a point to where they're illiquid in the directed IRA account. Well, can we transfer some money over from your Fidelity account to pay for those expenses? There are banks that have IRA loans in case you have no other money to tap into when it comes to IRA capital. There are banks that have IRA loans. We'll talk about that on future programs, but just to answer a question, yes, your IRA should pay for furniture. It should really pay for anything related to that IRA owned asset.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and hop into the next one. So another anonymous attendee formed a partnership LLC, 24% of my Roth IRA LLC, $40,000, 24% wife's Roth IRA LLC, $40,000. That's a 52% personal stake at $80K. They bought a rental property free and clear for $160K a few months back. They're currently renting that property for $1,400 a month, factoring in taxes and insurance, making around 9%. We are thinking we will hold on to this property for at least 5 years, maybe more, with the goal of increasing our Roth IRAs to a point where they can each own their own rental property and dissolve the partnership LLC. What are your thoughts? Does this sound like a good goal, or should we maybe focus on something else?
Again, without giving investment advice, it sounds like you have a pretty good plan there. I mean, you've started out with an investment that's got cash flow. I like the idea that you're using Roth IRAs. Here's the cool thing about Roth IRAs is when you own property in a Roth IRA and you get to that point to where you're 59 and a half, that golden age, and you've had the Roth IRA open for at least 5 years, there's 5 years of seasoning, all the distributions from that Roth IRA are now tax-free and penalty-free for life. This is why real estate is such a cool investment in a self-directed IRA, especially a self-directed Roth IRA, because I've had clients before accumulate, 5, 10, even a dozen rental properties in a Roth IRA. And by the time they're 59 and a half, every time a renter pays rent on one of those properties into the Roth IRA, they can take that rent out as a distribution, tax-free and penalty-free for life. And if your idea is to build it in a way where you can buy more property, yes. I mean, if that fits your investment goals, if it's something that you understand and want to invest in that versus stocks, more power to you. We'll also talk on even not next week, but the week after, we're going to talk about how to leverage bank financing and other types of ways IRAs can leverage. So if you're looking to scale more and buy more properties using other people's money, we'll talk about that too. But again, not giving you investment advice, but it sounds like you've got a well thought out plan there. David, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you addressed it very well, Nate. I think it's a good plan, and keep going on with your forward motion. Really good.
Do we have any questions for David?
I was about to ask David, was there anything that you see on there that you wanted to jump in and answer?
Well, actually, I saw that first question that came in before we actually got started. I'm interested in leads. I'm not going to talk about leads, but also the question was pros and cons of equity versus debt. I think I can add to that, and then certainly pros and cons or some of the rules regarding equity versus debt and equity with financing. And again, you talked about UBIT and that kind of thing, which is all manageable, and it just comes down to what your goals are with a particular allocation into a self-directed IRA, and if is a more a traditional or is it a Roth, and that's I'm not going to dig into that. Nate and company can do that for you, but just in general, equity versus debt. So I'm going to talk about just in terms of the market, okay, not specifically to your IRA. In the market today, I think with the headwinds we have to be careful about equity investment right now, because I see deflationary forces right now in the equity market in general. Equities being multifamily, self-storage, rental houses. We have this increase in interest rates to fight inflation, and that's causing a disinflation of those asset values. So just be careful jumping in too early or overpaying or over leveraging in those areas. I like the debt side, and I'm talking about owning debt, not being obligated to pay the debt, being the bank. That's a great place, in my opinion, for self-directed IRAs to own notes receivable, interest income. Well, it's tax deferred or tax deferred, depending upon what account you use. But I love to be the bank, and to me, right now, it's a safer place for me to put my money. Again, I'm being very general here, but I hope that answers that a little bit of that question. Nate, you want to jump on and add anything else to that?
Yeah, it kind of ties into the first thing that I had written down that I just want to bring up, because we're kind of in an interesting time when it's, precarious time when it comes to real estate. It's almost like we're in a fight between limited to supply and deteriorating affordability. So everyone's kind of expecting prices to maybe come down, or is it the right time to buy real estate? Is it the wrong time to buy real estate? That's really up to you to decide. And obviously different markets are functioning differently right now, but you brought up a great point. Real estate's not the only alternative asset you can look for. You can hold notes receivable. That's actually what I like to do. Not so much for, obviously I like it because it's something that I came from a banking background. Yes. I understand mortgages. So I like to own mortgages in my IRA. I mean, to investors, not actual owner occupants. But I like the fact that I know what I'm getting because the interest rate's already predetermined. I know that I'm getting it at the first of the month. And it's a good hedge for me. I can keep up with inflation, and, the cost of regular financing has increased. So I think there's a need for private lenders out there because banks are tightening up their qualifying criteria right now. Interest rates are going up. So as a private lender out of your IRA, that's something that you can do, and you can be both. I've some of the best investors I see own, a handful of notes in their IRA, and then they've got some real estate in their IRA. And that's a good way to balance out, different types of investments and diversify within alternatives.
Yes. Perfect. Another good question here we might want to tap into is what's the best way to vet? I know Paula changed it from get, but it's vet a company. So due diligence, underwriting, your investments, particularly if you're going to invest through someone who has funds or syndications, which I do a ton of that because I don't want to be so active on the ground anymore at this stage in my life. I did all that, and it was a great way to go, being involved with short-term rentals or rental properties. That's great, and I'm not taking away from that. But when you're going to invest through other people, how do you vet? Well, you vet a company, right? You got to start with the individuals. Who are the principals in the company? What do you know about them? Are you at a point where you can run background checks? If you don't know them, I would. You can get people to run background checks. Your network, once again, directed IRA, holding forums and community where you can talk to other investors. They're not going to tell you. Nate's not going to tell you, well, you should or shouldn't. That's up to us as the individuals, for us to do our own vetting. But I would get social proof. Who else has done business with this company or this person? That start there. So their character, their track record, what do you know about them? How long they've been doing this particular model of what they are? And then there's the structural and legal component of the offerings being made. I'm not an attorney. Most of you are probably not attorneys. Nate's not going to act as your attorney, but you've got to have somebody to help advise you on what you're actually investing in. The documents, they're long, right? Nate, they can be involved. Have someone on your team, have an attorney. Maybe you co-op with other people to have an attorney help you read some of those till you get a little bit more understanding about how to read a PPM and what that means to you. Really, really important. Particularly today, I'm just going to say, be careful out there. When the market's always running uphill, as it has been up until about last year, like everybody seems to do well, unless someone's actually creating fraud out there. And there's always fraud in any market, but even people trying to do good may run into trouble, and you just have to be prepared for that and do your due diligence the best you can. I could go on and on, but I'll stop there, Nate, and you can maybe add anything else that you guys can talk about.
Great points. And it actually kind of tied into a question I was going to ask about, what type of, for somebody that's looking to build a network. I think everybody can use more tools in their tool belt, I like to call it. And you kind of mentioned a couple, and I kind of wanted to ask you, who are the people that you have that are tools in your tool belt? You kind of mentioned attorney, you invest, I've got CPA down here, a CPA that understands self-direction. If you're actually using some creative tactics in a self-directed IRA, like using debt, make sure you have a CPA that understands A lot of times you want a CPA that understands real estate investing. That's usually
Yes.
a good start. You want to know some investment sponsors, but you also need to understand how to do due diligence on investment sponsors. The reason why investment sponsors are important, I think, is because with a self-directed IRA, you have to find your own investments. You don't have to be the deal flow yourself, but you need to have access to deals and access to deal flow, and at least have some things that you can look at so that you can vet, based on the initial question. And we will have, just to let you viewers know, we're going to have some speakers on over the next couple of weeks that are going to talk specifically about due diligence, because that's one of the biggest things a self-directed IRA investor needs to do, is to conduct due diligence or have somebody in their tool belt that can conduct due diligence for them.
Yeah, perfect.
And I also have on there,
And-
they should have a really good self-directed IRA company. I have that as a tool.
Absolutely.
And as a due diligence heads up to the crowd that's listening, we do have a ton of podcasts on due diligence and vetting on the Directed IRA podcast, as well as the Main Street Business podcast. So go ahead and get to YouTube and check those out if you're interested in learning more. I got another question for you and David, Nate. So this is going to be a good one. Dr. Phelps, would you be able to set up a dentistry consulting business within your self-directed IRA, and the funds would go into the self-directed IRA, similar to a real estate business within a self-directed IRA? Are these situations exactly the same?
Well, I'm going to start and I'm going to turn it back over to Nate. I believe, yes, you can certainly do that. And then you have just to weigh, the tax consequences where it comes to a CPA. Nate, I'm going to toss it back to you. I know the answer is yes. What else would you add to that?
No, yeah. And that's more of a question for us, I would say. So
Yeah.
when it comes to your IRA investment, break it down real simply. You can own anything except the two investments I mentioned at the very beginning of the show. You can't own collectibles, and you can't own life insurance contracts. Okay. So can your IRA own a business? Yes, it can own a business. It can own it through publicly traded stock, or it can own it directly as an IRA owning a business. Here's where it changes a little bit for the IRA. We kind of mentioned, and we'll talk more specifics. If you're not familiar with it, I don't want to get over people's heads on the first episode, but there is a tax that self-directed IRA investors just have to be consider. It's called unrelated business income tax. This unrelated business income tax is not a tax to you, the individual. It's a tax to your IRA. And it kicks in when there's three things that might happen. Your IRA owns debt leveraged property. Your IRA owns personal property. So that's things that aren't attached to the ground, boats, jet skis, things like that. Or your IRA owns a business. Okay. Here's why IRAs have to pay tax when an IRA owns a business. It's a leveling of the playing field. It would be unfair for IRA investors to buy businesses and pay no tax, because essentially they would run everybody else out of business who is paying tax. So your IRA can own a business. It probably will be subject to unrelated business income tax. That doesn't make it a bad investment. That just means you need to consult with a CPA, figure out what the tax consequences are, and basically look at your cash, your return on investment. Am I making a greater return, even though I'm paying a tax, than I would in my investments in the stock market or whatever other opportunities I have? Then it might still be a good play. But it's something that you have to account for. I always say UBIT's something to be aware of, but not be scared of. And there are some techniques, and we have videos on this. I know Matt Sorensen has talked specifically about C Corp blockers and things that might minimize a tax if your IRA owns a business. But to get back to your question, yes, an IRA can own a business. It may be subject to tax. And here's the one last thing I want to add to that. It can't be a business that you profit from individually, or it can't be an investment back into your own business. You're a disqualified person to your own IRA, so you can't direct your IRA to buy businesses back to yourself or things that put money into your pocket. Your benefit from your IRA comes from its distributions. You have to invest in companies of non-disqualified third parties. So anybody that's not you, your spouse, your kids, your grandkids, your parents, your grandparents. I hope that answered your question. Tristan, we got anything else?
You have any other questions you'd like to ask David? The rest of them are going to be, for the most part, just IRA related stuff.
As we wrap up, David, let me ask you this, and we kind of touched on this before we went live. You come in cross with a lot of people, and the thing that I really like about Freedom Founders specifically is you've kind of separated yourself from the dentistry world. And in my experience, a lot of physicians, a lot of people that are working, and business owners like that, they have money to invest. They don't have the time to find investments, but you have broken away and you're now teaching people about what you've learned. So I guess my question is, what do you see as the driving force that are bringing people to Freedom Founders? Is it a life-changing event? Is it they get to a certain point of retirement that they think they need more money to retire? What is it that you see that's converting people from traditional stocks and bonds to alternatives today?
Yeah, Nate, it's not specifically focused on any particular demographic age. You would think, and typically there are people who are nearing what they want to consider retirement, getting out of the business, the practice, selling it. And so they are more concerned at that point about, oh my gosh, I have assimilated or aggregated this much money in various accounts, but what do I do with it now, right? So there is a part of that. But we're seeing a lot younger people, mid-career and actually in their 30s, who are thinking ahead, and they're not close to quote retirement age, but they also, I think, because everybody, if you're paying any attention to the world today, it's changing. It's more volatile. It's more disruptive. What we believe to be true, where years and years ago, maybe generations ago, you could put your money in CDs or T-bills, which would be called the conservative way to go, and you'd be fine. I mean, that's what senior citizens used to do, right? They work a lot and they just put it in something very, very simple, considered very safe. The problem is, with the interference of the monetary policies of the Federal Reserve and the fiscal policies of Congress, inflation, they've kept the interest rates on returns very, very low for those conservative investments. And so people have had to figure something else out. What I'm saying is people today are discovering that they need to be more on top of, more proactive about directing their funds for, quote, retirement, for investment than ever before. And I think that's what's drawing people out to directed IRA. That's why people come to Freedom Founders at all ages. They're saying, we need to get on top of this. We can't wait. We can't abdicate to outside people or traditional investments, even though those people and traditionals are not bad people. It's just models that I think are past their prime. You've got to be more on top of it yourself today.
Yeah, I think especially today, with the things going on with banking and all that, and I'm not getting into it, on any political basis or anything, but like you said, people are now they're more in tune to what their money's doing and where it's at. And that's really the underlying, concept with self-direction is, where your money's at. At the end of the day, you can sleep at night, at least knowing my IRA is invested into that rental property and it's got an address and it's got a renter in there. And I know what it's doing. Most people, and it's gravitating, it's shifting a little bit, but still most people, I would argue, if you walk up to the average American and ask them, hey, what investments do you have in your 401k? They can't name you what's in the 401k. They can tell you maybe the name of the fund. Maybe 10% of the people can name you the fund. You might run into that really smart guy or gal that can name you a couple stocks in there. But then when you ask them, well, who's the CEO of that company? Are they what are they doing, as a business model? Unless you're in that market, unless you're a stockbroker or you're analyzing these companies, most people just invest in these things because that's what they were taught. It's so funny. I talked to a gentleman yesterday that scheduled a call with me, and he was, he's starting retirement at a very young age. He wanted to start a Roth IRA. He wanted to invest in alternatives. He's 1 year out of high school. Wow. 1 year out of high school. I thought back to myself. I was nowhere close to thinking about that type of stuff when I was 1 year out of high school. And even when I got out of college, the mentality I had in my head was, from what I was taught in school, is just, work for a company, set up a 401k, put 10% away, let somebody else invest it. And then when you'll wind up, being able to retire at some point. But then when I got out of college and I started looking at numbers, and, the average, family has a retirement of about $60,000 to $70,000 when they retire. Most people invest in the stock market. So I thought the numbers don't add up to me. I don't see where the retirement becomes a possibility just because you invest and put some money into a 401k. And that, again, that's, I'll get off my soapbox here, but that's why it's just so important. And like to what you said, I don't think it's an age demographic anymore. It's now starting with a much younger generation. And I also want to commend you too, because I know that you are doing some advocacy to change some literacy requirements in schools. Do you want to touch on that? Because I saw that and I just thought that was such a commendable thing that you're doing out there, is actually looking at reforming some of the programs that we have in school to teach kids at a younger age about financial responsibility.
We know that the public school system is in a lot of ways broken today. And certainly even when I was going through school, when maybe it wasn't as broken as it was back in those days, financial literacy just isn't taught. You just had to get it somewhere else or not get it at all. In most cases, what has been taught is just been really not very applicable to real life. And I think real life skills in financial literacy is important. So my point being earlier on my slide deck, just showing, I think that my generation owes what we can give back to the younger generation if we can, because no one else is doing it. And if we don't help, then what's the next generation is going to look like? I want them to see that there's hope when they're coming out of school, much of the time today, with huge amounts of debt relative to the job, quote, job opportunities today. I think a lot of them feel very hopeless and a lot of despair, and I don't want them to feel that way. If we can, I say all of us and you all at Directed IRA, if we can give them the tools and the resources to start seeing how they can be more involved in their financial future and not just have to just take it on the chin, so to speak, because they didn't learn any of these things, it's very important. So, yeah, I was asked through a contact to help with the Florida Department of Education. Now, I'm in Texas. Why am I doing Florida? Just because Florida right now, under Ron DeSantis, they're pretty proactive on a lot of things I think are good. I'm not being political, but I think looking at financial literacy for high school students, graduating high school, they're requiring them to have certain credits in that arena. And I was asked to be on a task force, a workforce, to help create what does that look like and to help develop it. So then the teachers have a curriculum that they can actually have resources to go and teach this to the kids to get those credits to pass. And it's basic stuff, but there is some stuff on self-direction. You'll be glad to know that, Nate.
Awesome.
We did get that in there because, again, it's so important. You can start a Roth, when you're, probably 4 years old. There's ways to do that, and for parents to get them started, to have your child understand that they actually hold the keys to their future if they learn how to work it, and that's what I want people to understand.
Well, and you've probably heard this as much as I've heard it, but when people learn about self-direction, I get this comment all the time. They say, I wish I would have known this 10 years ago. I wish I would have known this 20 years ago. So again, I commend you for doing that. We need more people like you getting down to that issue. So let's pull up this slide real quick as we end. Tristan, I just want to make sure people know, where they can get a hold of us. If you have any questions that we didn't address today specific to IRAs, you can email me, nate.hare@directedira.com. Again, I'm the executive director here at Directed IRA. You can also email jeff.minnick@directedira.com. He's our vice president of business development. We both have 10 years of experience in self-directed IRAs. So we can help you with anything self-direction other than selling you investments. So David, I've got Freedom Founders up there. I highly encourage you guys to check him out. Follow him on LinkedIn. He does a lot of stuff. A lot of good content comes out from the things that he's doing. And now I see him all over the place. So again, thank you, David, for spending your time with us. It was really good having you. I'll let you end here in a second. I just want to 2 quick slides. If you guys miss anything education wise, don't forget, you can go to our website, directedira.com. We've got a ton of education. Just click our Learn tab. We've got our podcasts, we've got our webinars, we've got our workshops, we've got articles. Obviously, our CEO, Matt Sorensen, well-known name. He wrote the book, the Self-Directed IRA Handbook, which is the best-selling self-directed IRA book out there. It's been the best-selling book for many, many years. And if you're a client, don't forget this. We'll pay you to get the word out. If you're a client, go to our website and you'll find a tab that says refer a friend. You put some information in there. You can send a free paperback copy of the Self-Directed IRA Handbook to anybody that you choose. And when you do that, we'll pay you $50. So you can have it on an Amazon gift card, or you can have it as a credit to your account. So as a basically sending the olive branch to you guys for being clients, we'll also pay you guys to help and you're spreading the word of financial wealth through self-direction by giving somebody a copy of that book. And then we do have a special. I'll just make it real quick. If you want to open a self-directed IRA at Directed, we do have a special going until tax day, which is next week, up until April 18th. We give you $150 off any account that you establish, as long as you establish it prior to the tax filing date of April 18th. Now, that doesn't mean you have to put money in there. Just get the account set up. Make a contribution. If you haven't made a contribution for last year, you have until April 18th. But since we're in the new year, you can make a contribution for this year or get some money rolled over or transferred from one of your other IRAs into a self-directed IRA where you have a little bit more control. David, any final thoughts that you want to give to the audience as we cut out here?
I was just thumbing through the question and answer feed and just want to commend the participants that were with us today, Nate, asking some really, really good questions. Of course, we didn't get to all of them, but all those questions are valid questions. And Nate, and the folks at Directed IRA can answer this for you. I'd say just say keep asking, stay involved, get the education. You all are doing the right thing. So I appreciate being here, Nate. It's always great to do anything we can do together.
Thank you. Thank you. And make sure to register for our next workshop. If you go to our workshop page, we should have a registration link up there soon. It's going to be every other week. So every first Wednesday and third Wednesday of the month, the topics are going to rotate. But the next program, we're going to dive deep into IRA case studies, talk about the tax advantages, the do's, the don'ts, the profits, the pitfalls. It's going to be a really, really good segment for you guys, whether you're a client or not, to actually look at real investments that investors have done, so you can learn from them and be a better self-directed IRA investor for yourself. So for myself, for Tristan, for Jeff, for David, thank you guys. My name is Nate Hare. This has been Rethinking Your Retirement. We'll see you guys in